Morning, everyone. So, the Conservative Party conference is finished now. We're done with that. Sick of it. Bored. And it's Labour's turn now. So, Labour haven't really been saying a great deal over the last week. Partly, I suspect, because they struggle to say things when the Tories are juggling and having their clown car crashes. Secondly, possibly they don't really mind because the last week has not, I don't think, has been positive for the Conservatives. It's a little bit of a mixed bag when you look at the newspaper front pages, but it's Labour's time now. And in fact, sooner than the conference, because there's a by-election today, let us not forget. I don't know if anyone out there is from Rutherglen and Hamilton West, but we've got a by-election today. Labour are going to win that. It was interesting timing, I said. Humza Yousaf, the SNP leader and First Minister of Scotland, of course, the SNP got to decide when it would be. They chose today. I thought it was interesting that they chose to do it just before Labour's conference. It was almost like if they could win it. I don't know whether they thought they had how much of a chance they had, but they had. It was clearly the problem is if the SNP thought to themselves, yeah, we're going to lose this, you wouldn't have put it today, because all this is going to do is give Labour a boost for their conference. Their conference is going to start on a high. But if the SNP had won it, then it would have cast a cloud over Labour's conference, because this seat is exactly the sort of seat Labour needs to be able to win in order to win a majority, because although, the focus is often on taking Conservative seats, people actually put too much emphasis on the red wall. The red wall's neither here nor there. The red wall has to swing back. But the red wall, Labour won the red wall in 2017, lost the election. They won it in 2015, lost the election. Won it in 2010, lost the election. Taking the red wall back doesn't sweep Labour to power. It makes them lose, just like before. They have to take it back, but they have to take so many other seats as well. So many other seats. But that includes some seats in Scotland, which is going to be basically taking them off the SNP, not the Conservatives. So this, call it the tartan wall. That would cover every seat then, wouldn't it? Although there will be fewer seats. There'll be fewer Scottish seats in the election next year because of the boundary changes. Which, of course, I know some people are thinking, wouldn't it be hilarious if the Tories were beaten so badly the SNP with an official opposition? Can't realistically work. They're limited to like the seats in Scotland. Scotland only have so many seats, and it's much fewer in the next election, or significantly fewer. Realistically, if the Tories were beaten that badly, it would be the Lib Dems who'd be the official opposition. But yeah, it's this seat, Labour have to show they can win it. And there's always an element of nonsense when it comes to a by-election, because the by-election result has actually very little bearing on the general election result next year, because first of all, it's not the same people. Like, the ones voting in a by-election are like the most committed voters. It'll be maybe half of the number of people who will vote in the general election. The other thing is it's a very different type of person as well. So it's the ones that are much more likely to be voting for a particular reason. And in the general election, that reason is voting for how you want the balance of power to look. Whereas in a by-election, you can do for whatever you like. You're not going to change the balance of power in Parliament. It's not going to be affected. Doesn't matter. In fact, literally, in this case, doesn't matter whether Labour win it or the SNP win it. It doesn't affect the government in the slightest. So yeah, it's whatever the result is, and however much it is by, doesn't actually have any bearing on the general election. But people will behave as if it does, so we have to pretend, right? Labour are really confident. Stunningly confident. Like, the most recent polling I saw showed Labour taking it quite comfortably, and that was specifically, that's not MRP polling, that is specifically for this by-election, and that was last week. Anna Sawar is talking very, very confidently. He basically put it this way: if the SNP win it, Anna Sarwar is going to look like a right tit. It's not only going to be bad for Keir Starmer, he's going to look. So they are going to win. They know they're going to win it. They're confident. If it was in any way tight, they would be hedging their bets a little bit, and they'd be, But whereas it's Humza Yousaf is talking about the fact, we're probably going to lose this, and it's all Margaret Ferrier's fault, which is what you would do. That's what you would say, because from the SNP's point of view, they have to be able to claim if they lose it, particularly if they lose it badly, oh no, this isn't a sign of things to come for the general election. That was just because Margaret Ferrier shit the bed. But there we go. Right, I'll catch up with some comments before we sort of look ahead towards the conference as well. Oh, hello, Paul. So I actually managed to make a live stream for the first time in ages. Yes, it is. It is awkward being in the morning. Did we see Farage campaigning for Trump on Twitter earlier? Apparently, he'll save America. Yeah, he does that, doesn't he? He sees him still as a cash cow. Hi, Daily Blase. But there we go. Hasn't the most seats the Lib Dem have won in recent times been around 65? Not that much more than the SNP now. Right. Well, okay. There's two things to bear in mind. First of all, the SNP are going to lose seats. Labour at the moment have one MP in Scotland. Right. Labour are going to significantly increase on that. Right. We don't know by how much. So, and that is going to be at the cost of the SNP. So the SNP are going to lose seats, right? They will probably still end up with the most seats in Westminster, or the Scottish seats of any other party, but they are going to lose a significant number of seats to Labour. The other thing to note, however, as I have also said as well, Scotland's going to have fewer seats in the next election, because the boundary changes have changed things. I forget how many fewer now. I could look it up really quickly. But they're going to have fewer seats. I think it's 10. Hold on. Oh, no, it says 2. Oh, Wales lose loads. What's going on? All right. But nonetheless, okay, 2. That's not as many as I thought they were losing. And the other thing to bear in mind is, if the Tories get really hammered, it's not going to be by losing Scottish seats, because they've got, Labour have only got 1. Tories are doing better there. They've got 5, but it's still not, losing all of those doesn't do much to their national picture. So for the Tories to be beaten into 3rd place or 4th, it's not going to happen. But if it were to happen, it could only be as a result of the Lib Dems taking loads of blue wall seats. Because Labour, can take a lot of seats, but they are also limited. They'd really need the Lib Dems to take a quite heroic number of seats. So that is why, realistically, if the Conservatives were to be beaten into 3rd place, it would be the Lib Dems in 2nd, not the SNP. But anyway, there it is. Little comment here before I go into the conference thing. Says, you can see how power crazy the Tories are, as in Sunak trashing HS2 without democratic consent and holding on to power for yet another year, risking getting beaten even more so. That is the nature of party politics, though. There's a lot of people active in party politics in lots of parties. I think it's right to say the Conservatives are particularly undemocratic, because they have this attitude of born to rule type thing, which is why they keep electing as leader, people from very privileged backgrounds. But you do get some of that in a lot of parties, because they you get it in Labour as well. Like, if you look at the difference between Labour and the Conservatives at the moment. So in Labour, you had a lot of party members who I always say are out of, I am, but a lot of party members are out of kilter with general public opinion, right? Because we are much more to the left on average than the average voter. So, like, lots of party members, for example, really looked forward to Jeremy Corbyn's policies, because they were the policies that they believed in. They just ignored the fact that they weren't ever going to see them come, to see the light of day. Whereas with Keir Starmer's, party members are getting behind them, but it's because we accept that it's the price for being able to change anything. It's the price for power. So many of us would love it if Labour could actually change quite a lot of the policies to what we think would be the best for the country. So the Conservatives are just the same, but on the other side. So they think that their ideas are better, that their low tax, small state ideas are better, which is the unifying factor of the Conservatives. There's lots of other things, policies you associate with the Conservatives, but there's no real consensus for that. If you look at the anti-immigration stance of people like Suella Braverman, that is not universally shared within the Conservative Party. The universal binding feature is low tax, small state. If you don't believe in that, you're not a Conservative. So, but everything else is sort of in the mix. They're just the same. They think the same thing. They think that if they have the ability to implement policies that aren't quite what most voters agree, it's because they don't understand. We know what's best for people. So, it's easy to fall into these traps. And you get it everywhere. But anyway, as to the conference, so after the by-elections, we have the by-election today, all very exciting, but more exciting tomorrow when we get the results. Then Saturday, we have a bit of a sandwich. And then on Sunday, the Labour Party conference starts. On Monday, the best parts of the Labour Party conference, because we are going to be in Liverpool doing a couple of fringe events. One of them is outside of the main conference area, so you don't need to be a Labour delegate to attend that. So the first one, and there's a link in the description below, the first one's at the Camp and Furnace, 5 p.m. on Monday, the 9th. And there are still tickets available for that. And then the second one is inside the conference on Tuesday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, I think. So on the Monday, where it's outside the conference, there'll be quite a few of us. There'll be myself, Graham, Tan, Femi, and Marina Perkis. On the one inside the Labour conference, obviously you can only be there if you're a Labour member. So that's Graham, myself, and Tan who will be doing that one. So we shall see you there if you happen to be in Liverpool at the time. But anyway, going to some more comments. We're saying here, there isn't a democratic solution for this situation we find ourselves in. History shows it can only happen by force. No, on the contrary, it can never happen by force. Any political change that happens as a result of force, unless it really is like the people against the dictatorship, as happened with the French Revolution, always ends up reverting back. Always ends up reverting back. On the contrary, there has to, has to be popular support. And the thing is, we're not a dictatorship. We're really not a dictator. I know you look at some of the direction of travel, yes, but that's a direction of travel, not where we are now. We're not a dictatorship. People can vote. There's going to be an election next year. People can vote in it. Unless Tory rebels bring Sunak's government down sooner. Obviously, he didn't announce a general election yesterday. So that he's not intending a general election this autumn. Otherwise, he would have announced it and screwed over Labour's conference. But he hasn't. Was Liverpool going to have a link to HS2? I don't think so. I think it was just going to go to... But the thing is, if they'd done it as they originally intended, you could have always extended it later, couldn't you? But I think the original plans were just for linking Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, and London. But obviously, you could then extend it after that. You don't have to stop. I mean, when you consider that there were some... there are some advanced countries, including France right next door to us, that's got high-speed rail links all over the place. Absolutely all over the place. But there we go. People forget Napoleon followed the French Revolution. That is true. That is true. Yes, you could argue that was effective monarchy, even though he refused a crown. Yeah. Became emperor instead. Which is basically the same thing, but where you've nicked a load of countries alongside your own. Yes, don't forget to click the like button, please, as Don Dudat is pointing out there as well. A pedantic peasant saying Marina is brilliant when she annihilated Rees-Mogg. Amazing. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see her in combative mood. We shall be discussing the power of social media. But there we go. So yeah, in terms of the conference, I think we can probably say there will be a very different mood at the Labour conference. If we think about the Conservative conference, what it was characterized was that Rishi Sunak, although he got a lot of polite applause and he's getting some good write-ups in the Tory client media, he was not the star of the show. The star of the show was his predecessor, his probable successor, and maybe what some people want to be the successor after that, Nigel Farage. So it's basically Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, and Nigel Farage. And a Dalek. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I don't get, right? So it's the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who coming up. There was a Dalek at the Tory conference, and on the face of it, you go, okay, fine, yeah, whatever. It's a cultural icon in Britain, good. But you think to yourself, why on earth did the Conservatives allow a Dalek at their conference? Because there were so many icons of Doctor Who. Like, why not just a TARDIS or something, right? So many icons of Doctor Who. Why a Dalek? Think about what the Daleks are. The Daleks were created by Terry Nation, the author who wrote the first and many of the other Dalek stories, specifically as an analogy for the Nazis. That is what the Daleks are. The author, the person who created them, the person who wrote the stories for basically 2 decades, made it incredibly clear that is what they were. He brought Nazis into the Doctor Who universe in like their second story. That's what it's specifically to do that. And it's like, why on earth would they allow a Dalek at the conference when there's a lot of people comparing? And some of the comparisons are unfair, I am going to say, but nonetheless, there's a lot of people comparing the Conservatives with the Nazis. And you think, why would you put a Dalek there? But anyway, it is what it is. Johnny Cophead, thank you very much for £5 super chat. Are there any plans to live stream the Liverpool event? So Graham has just said we are definitely streaming the live talk on the Monday one. I think there is some doubt about the Tuesday one, depending on the quality of the Wi-Fi. So I think we are confident, or Graham is confident, that the internet connection will be fine on the Monday, so we can do that. But maybe we're not sure about the Tuesday one. So that will be, I think, we will have to wait and see. But it's, yeah, so the Labour conference, I think, will be very different. The Labour conference will be much more stage managed. There are a couple of aspects of its stage management which are going beyond the pale, in my view. I think they're getting some decisions wrong. But nonetheless, the Conservative Party conference was all about their divisions, whereas the Labour Party conference will be much more positive. It'll be much more about how we can make the country better, preparing for government. Whereas the party conference, the Tory party conference this week was about how they cope in opposition, right? Liz Truss, what was she doing? Preparing for opposition. Suella Braverman, what was she doing? Preparing for opposition. Even Rishi Sunak was preparing for opposition. Not that he will be in opposition, he'll be in California. But, you know, that was the thing. Captain Bart Roberts, £2 there saying a Dalek FFS. Yeah, it was the start of the show. You know, apparently, I mean, I'm told by people who were there, correspondents, not, I don't know people personally that were there, but by correspondence, that the 4 most popular attractions at the Tory party conference were Liz Truss, Nigel Farage, Suella Braverman, and a Dalek. So many people taking their photos with the Dalek. Nigel Farage took a selfie with the Dalek, goodness sake. I mean, how much on the nose can you get? But there we go. You just caught your cat, Big Gus, drinking out the toilet. I'm sure it's a toilet. I thought it was dogs that tried to do that. But there it is. You say Stab will have this lockdown tight. Well, it certainly seems so, yes. In some ways, too much so. But at the end of the day, the real reason for the Labour Party conference is fundraising. That is the bottom line. That's what it's there for. It's to build up the war chest. Labour have way more, and a lot of it is like businesses buying exhibition space at the conference. Labour have got way more than the Conservatives doing that. So Labour are going to make way more money than the Conservatives out of this conference, unless there were people at the Tory Party conference signing some like £1 million checks or something. Labour are going to come out of this one with way more. Lots of businesses have rented quite expensive exhibition space. It's going to be very, very active. I don't think we're going to see either the lots of empty seats when senior members of the party are talking. I mean, it was really quite incredible at the Tory Party conference. The first day I sort of thought maybe the train strike, but when on the second day there were all those empty seats for cabinet ministers, you thought, particularly for like the transport secretary, you thought, no, this isn't normal. But there we go. Yes, Peter's saying there, the Dalek had a selfie with the most evil creature in the universe ever. Yeah, I am going to say there are probably people more evil than Nigel Farage, but yes. I would possibly prefer a Dalek in charge than Nigel Farage. At least they're consistent. They just consistently hate everyone. Whereas Nigel Farage, although he says he's consistent, is not remotely consistent at all, is he? Roland's saying there we should focus on broadcasting a hopeful message. I'm not sure what's in reference to. I think that goes back to an earlier thing. There is a lot. So, okay, just to put in a bit of a debate. So there is a debate at the moment as to how Labour need to pitch their offer to the electorate. There are some people who think they need to sell the public a grand vision, not just pretend to be a little bit better than the Tories. There is a counter argument to that, because normally you'd think, well, yes, that would be really good, wouldn't it? The counter argument to that is that, first of all, people are sick of the grand vision. They don't believe it. How many people do you think believed Rishi Sunak yesterday? He was announcing what he thought was a grand vision. Oh, changes to tertiary education, like getting rid of A levels and T levels and having this British standard qualification, which, by the way, is completely unworkable, what he's proposing. But it's a grand vision for people that don't necessarily know that. He had a grand vision for education. He had a grand vision for healthcare. He had a grand vision for transport. How many people do you think believe it? No. People have had grand visions. They've had the levelling up grand vision. It's nowhere. It's gone. Dead and buried. Rishi Sunak completely buried the levelling up programme yesterday. Every aspect of levelling up has been cancelled except HS2. Now that's been cancelled. The Birmingham to London, okay, but that's levelling up was specifically supposed to be for the left behind areas, which is not the bits between Birmingham and London, right? The Brexit was the other grand vision. That's gone to shit. So it's like there's an argument that people are sick of the grand vision. The other thing is Labour are making a decision, rightly or wrongly, but I grudgingly think probably rightly, to under-promise and over-deliver. Now, if the polls were tighter, then yes, they may have to present more of a vision. I get that. But they can react to that. They can be reactive because they do have policies for very wide-ranging reforms, right? They do have policies for that. But at the moment, they don't need them. It's not just that they're going to win, they're going to win big as things stand. And they can always adapt if necessary if the polls do tighten next year. But the argument is if Labour try and sell a grand vision that people won't believe it, because that was a danger of 2019. People keep talking about, oh, we don't want to have a repeat of 1992. It's like there's nothing in common with 1992 now. People should be more worried about 2019. In 2019, people liked the idea of Labour's policies. They did not believe that they would be delivered. There was that fundamental belief in, oh, this sounds nice, but you won't do it or you can't do it. Labour need to be, and they are much more consciously avoiding that. So yes, I get people going, oh, we want this hope, we want this vision. It's like, a lot of people don't want the hope. They want to know that things are going to get better. And by Labour just basically saying, look, we're just going to do the boring work and fix this and fix that and fix the other, they can deliver on that. And then if they then deliver the grand vision without ever having made a song and dance about it, then they can then that is them over delivering. So when they go into the next election, they can say, we did exactly what we said we were going to do and more besides, at which point they can then start to sell a vision at the following election. Anyway, going back to this super chat that I missed off here, a pedantic peasant, £5 super chat, thank you very much. It's like Lord of the Rings, Penny Mordor, Orcs, Leaky Sue and crew, please upgrade Northeastern rail capacity and speed, Labour. Labour may struggle now because, you think to yourself, right, so Rishi Sunak has basically cancelled the northern leg of HS2. And Labour have said that they shouldn't have done. So you think, so Labour think that HS2 should go ahead. Does that mean that they will commit to it? The problem is that although Sunak isn't going to deliver any of his promises by the election, if the election's next year, he can screw over Labour with HS2 because they're planning to sell off all the land. So there's land being bought up to build the northern leg. I say the northern leg, there were two northern legs because you have two legs, the Conservatives first cut one away and now the other. But the northwestern leg, shall we say, there's land being bought for that. The Tories are going to sell it, aren't they? Cheap to their mates, probably. So Labour may not be in a position to go ahead with HS2 as it was originally intended because it may cost even more to try and buy that land back. So we'll have to see where we are, but that is the issue. That is the issue with. So I have just a bit of pedant. My pedantic side just flashed up. Gary saying Lord of the Rings is a great book. It's 6 books, really, but yes, okay. Usually it's sold as 3 books these days, isn't it? But there we go. It's it could be very tricky. In fact, there was a suggestion that what Sunak was doing yesterday was, again, preparing for opposition, setting traps for Labour, setting traps for when Labour are in power, because that's where we are now. People have said for a while, are the Conservatives just salting the earth for Labour? Do they believe they're going to lose? Is this what they're doing now, just trashing everything? And I remember in 1992, after the general election, I was much younger. I'm sure you'll be surprised to learn. And I was Spitting. I used to watch Spitting Image at the time. And there was a Spitting Image, the post-election thing, which had the Conservatives like John Major and all that lot in his cabinet all celebrating the election win. And then it suddenly dawned on them and says, oh no, we buggered up the economy for Labour. Now we're stuck with it, which was truer than they thought because later that year, the economy did actually disappear up its own arsehole. Yes, there's a lot of people thinking the Conservatives are just now salting the earth. I think after this conference, you can confidently say that now. This conference was 100% designed to focus on the future direction of the Tory party after the election when they lose. And from Rishi Sunak's point of view, it sounded to me very much like trying to make things as difficult for Labour when they're in power. So I actually do think that, put it this way, if anyone tries to argue that the Conservatives are now going to spend all their time between now and the election creating as much mess as they can for Labour, I am not going to argue against them because I think there's every possibility that is the case. I'm just going to go one last thing here. Someone's saying, I saw how Tony Blair's government were hand in hand with the papers. I can see it again. So yeah, we'll do that one. So first of all, you are focusing on the one newspaper, Sun newspaper, that said we're backing Blair. That was only because Blair was going to win anyway, and they want to be on the winning side. Every other front page of the Sun that was talking about Labour was attacking Labour, because that's what they do. Yes, Tony Blair was far too close to the likes of Murdoch. That will not be an issue with Keir Starmer. If you say you can see the same with Keir Starmer, you are mad, and you have no idea what Keir Starmer did to Rupert Murdoch 10 years ago, and Rupert Murdoch will never forgive him. And you know what? Keir Starmer doesn't give a shit. Keir Starmer's going to go after him again. Obviously, leaders have to engage with the media because it's their sort of phone line to the public, or the main, a certain section of the public. But there we go. It's the relationship with the media is inevitably going to be fundamentally different. There will be media regulation. I know they're not talking about it at the moment because they don't want to speak the horses. Remember, Labour, I mean, we talk about this a lot, Labour's communications. Labour cannot exist without the mainstream media. They don't have, and it's like, even if they did get serious about their own communications, they still couldn't ignore the mainstream media. So, of course, you have to have a working relationship with them. But it's like working at work. It's like at work. Some of you will have colleagues who you think are complete bellends, right? But you still have to have professional relationships with them. Labour have to do with that with the papers, but they don't have to get in bed with them. And Starmer is not going to. I absolutely guarantee that. You can come back to me in 3 years' time if you like. Absolutely guarantee it. He is the person who brought down News of the World, threw Coulson in jail, and tried to get Rebecca Brooks as well. Didn't quite manage that one. The very idea that he's going to be in bed with the papers seems utterly insane and ignoring what Keir Starmer has chosen to do in his previous career. But there we go. We'll leave it there anyway. Tomorrow, of course, we will have the by-election results. So I imagine Graham will be talking a little bit about that. And there is the link again to the Camp and Furnace event, which is on Monday, if you happen to be in Liverpool. And if you are at the Labour conference, if you're a delegate and you're there on Tuesday, then in the afternoon, we've got something there as well. But have a very good evening, everyone, or day. Sorry, it might be evening for some of you. I don't know where you're coming from. But actually, I'm probably meant day. Don't forget to click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to click the links in the description below. And until next time, I'll see you later.